For all your t-shirt needs, check out TeePublic's Killer Selection. Follow the link in the description. Hey, what's up, people? Pizzao here, and today I want to talk to you guys about the new Vestron Video Collector's Series Blu-ray release for 1986's Slaughter High. Now, this is partially going to be a review of the movie as well as a review of this Blu-ray. However, it's going to be more a review of the Blu-ray because I did a full review of Slaughter High a couple of years ago for a series entitled The Back to School Slash Rally, in which I talked about slasher movies set in or around academic institutions. And so yeah, go check out that video for a more in-depth review of Slaughter High. The audio is a little off in that video, unfortunately, but it's a pretty good review, I think, if I do say so myself. But Slaughter High is a really, really fun 80s slasher movie. It's one of my favorite kind of second tier 80s slasher movies. And I can vividly remember renting this for the very first time on the Vestron Video VHS, taking it home, watching it with a couple of friends of mine, and we were just in stitches pretty much throughout the entire movie, beginning with the opening sequence in which the character of Marty is victim to one of the most cruel and unusual pranks I've ever seen in a movie, in which he's dragged naked across a bathroom floor. He's sprayed with a fire extinguisher. He's held up by two people and given a twirly, just a vicious twirly, probably the most vicious twirly ever caught on camera. And I remember I got some heat in my first review of Slaughter High because I think I called it a swirly. In my high school, that was referred to as a swirly, not a twirly, but a swirly. And I may be getting those confused. Maybe it was just a sort of, Southern colloquial thing that we call dunking forcefully against someone's wheel, their head into a toilet and then flushing it. We called it a swirly here and not a twirly. But I don't know. I've spoken way too in depth on that subject in both of these Slaughter High videos, and I will never speak of it ever again. Now, Slaughter High is about a nerdy guy by the name of Marty Ranson who is constantly picked on and bullied by the cool kids in his high school. The cool kids kind of led by Carolyn Monroe, who was actually 33 years old when she shot this movie, playing a high school student. As a matter of fact, all of the high school students in this high school, they look like they're somewhere in their early 30s, as a matter of fact, playing teenagers. And the high school itself doesn't even remotely resemble a high school. And what's even funnier is that to try and make it look like a high school, at least a high school in the U.S., they put a bunch of lockers in the hall in random spots. But they couldn't even find lockers the same, like uniform lockers of the same height or the same width. So you've got it's like a city skyline of lockers, big ones, small ones, wide ones, thin ones. It's clearly not a high school in the U.S. And it's also portrayed to be like this huge building, multi-story, just this labyrinth. But they shoot seemingly the entire film in the space of like two different hallways and two different rooms. That's it. Anyway, Marty is not only victim to that awful, horrible prank. Later in the day, he is victim to a prank which leads to a giant bottle of acid A giant bottle of acid that is left on the top of a rickety little shelf. Huge bottle of acid. Clearly it's acid because it's written right on the bottle. Acid just placed on top of this very rickety shelf. Anyway, the chemistry lab bursts into flames, and while Marty's trying to put out the fire, this enormous bottle of acid flies off of this rickety shelf, and he gets covered in acid. He's horribly burned, not only from the acid, but from the fire. 10 years later, all of his tormentors receive invitations to come back to the high school. The high school's in a state of disrepair. Even though it's been 10 years, they look exactly the same. And of course, Marty is there, and Marty begins to pick them off all one by one. And Slaughter High is a really interesting movie to watch. Number one, it was directed by 3 people. It's got 3 co-directors. And apparently what they did was one guy handled the actors, one guy handled the effects, and one guy handled the screenplay. So they each had their own individual specialty on the set. Which this movie really looks like it was directed by 3 people, but 3 people who were kind of not really amongst the 3 of them. They didn't have the knowledge of even one director or of one seasoned director or even halfway seasoned director. Because the atmosphere of this movie, the tone of this movie, is just really odd. And a lot of Slaughter High's shortcomings actually play in its favor. A lot of this movie's shortcomings, and this movie has a lot of shortcomings, actually give Slaughter High a certain kind of charm. This is a very charming, fun slasher movie that clearly doesn't take itself very seriously. It's just kind of all over the place. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean like the quality of it is just kind of all over the place. Insofar as how the movie looks, how well the movie is shot, the performances, it's just kind of all over the place. But again, that oddly works in the movie's favor. It just adds to the film's charm, because you do get the sense that everybody there understands that they're making kind of a hokey, cheesy exploitation slasher movie. Now, this movie was produced by Dick Randall, the infamous B-movie sleaze schlock legend. He produced movies like Pieces. They know they're not making, a very highbrow movie here, and they're completely fine with that. They've been given a certain amount of prerequisites by Dick Randall, which includes certain a certain body count and a certain body count, if you catch my drift. The performances overall, even though they kind of they're up and down, let's just put it that way. Overall, I would say they're not bad at all. Carolyn Monroe is always pretty solid in everything I've ever seen her in. The one constant here is the actor who played Marty Ranson, Simon Scudamore, who I can't say he's the most sympathetic character in the world, even though we've seen him probably the worst day one could imagine. Like I said, being dragged naked across the bathroom floor, sprayed with a fire extinguisher, and then to be victim to the most brutal, and I'm not even going to say the word, act involving a toilet and someone's head being forcibly put in the toilet and then the toilet flushed. To go from that to having acid splashed in your face and then being horribly burned. Even though he's had a really, 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 really bad day, he's still not that sympathetic a character, at least not to me. But the other characters in the movie are even less sympathetic, that you still find yourself rooting for him to just kill them all. We get a whole bunch of really kind of silly, hokey kills in this movie with some practical effects that range from not bad to yikes. We have one guy who shotguns a beer that must have been laced, I'm guessing, with acid, because his stomach literally bursts. We have a woman who takes an acid bath, and the animation of her skin melting off of her face, revealing the skull beneath, is they probably shouldn't have even put that in the movie. Just left that entire little thing out. We've got a sequence involving a lawnmower that gets dropped on a guy while he's working underneath it, as if we didn't see that one coming a mile away. We have a very intimate moment between two old friends that ends in a very, very electrifying encounter, and I'll leave it at that. But all in all, Slaughter High is just a fun 80s slasher movie, a second tier kind of slasher movie, but still a really fun slasher movie, one that I've watched countless times. And despite its flaws, which it has many, they just seem to give the movie character and give the movie charm. Now, granted, it does go on way too long. There's like 2 different like fake endings. That aside, I jumped at picking up this Blu-ray from the Vestron Collector Series when it was announced and adding it to my collection, because it's just the kind of movie that my collection needs, the kind of Blu-ray that my collection needs. Now, this did get a DVD release a long time ago, and it wasn't a very good DVD release. As I recall, the quality wasn't that great. There weren't anything in the way of extras or anything, to the best of my knowledge. I have to say, the Vestron Collector Series people really did an excellent job with this release. There's no indication back here as to what kind of a transfer is on this Blu-ray. Nothing about 2K transfer, 4K transfer, anything to that effect. But I have to say, this movie looked fantastic on this Blu-ray. It looked absolutely fantastic. So whatever the Vestron Video Collector Series people did to the transfer, they did an excellent job, because Slaughter High looks fantastic on this release. It sounds fantastic on this release. And we've got some really nice and really entertaining extras on here as well. We get going to pieces with co-writer, co-director Mark Ezra. It's 18 minutes and 29 seconds in length. Mr. Ezra discusses the inception of Slaughter High, meeting with producer Dick Randall and Steve Manasian. Steve Manasian was one of the producers of the original Friday the 13th, and pitching them the idea of April Fool's Day, which Randall and Manasian both jumped at. Originally, Slaughter High was to be titled April Fool's Day, which is interesting because in 1986, there were no less than 3 slasher movies slated for release. All of them with April Fool's Day in the title, all of them set around April Fool's Day. You had, of course, April Fool's Day with Amy Steele. You had Slaughter High, and you had Killer Party, which was originally entitled The April Fools. Odd. Mr. Ezra discusses writing the script and how he and his co-directors handled the directing duties individually. He discusses casting the film, including Carolyn Monroe and Simon Scudamore, who Ezra describes as being quiet, and how dedicated he was to working with children in a local children's home, to the point where he refused to work on weekends because he dedicated so much of his time to working with children at this children's home. Mr. Ezra discusses working with Harry Manfredini and not being entirely happy with the score that he delivered. He discusses Randall selling the film to Vestron Pictures and it becoming the success that it was. Very nice interview with Mr. Ezra, 18 minutes, 29 seconds in length. Next up, we have My Days at Doddsville, an interview with Carolyn Monroe. It's 14 minutes and 35 seconds in length. Miss Monroe discusses her character in Slaughter High. She discusses working with 3 directors and how all 3 had their own individual specialties on the set, such as special effects, writing the script, working with the actors. She discusses shooting the film at an old asylum and how spooky it was inside. She discusses the fans of Slaughter High that she's been able to meet at conventions and stuff over the years and how dedicated and loyal they are to the movie. She also discusses how much fun it was to make Slaughter High. Very nice interview with Miss Monroe. We get an alternate title sequence, the title sequence being for April Fool's Day. We get a still gallery, a theatrical trailer, and radio spots. We get an audio interview with composer Harry Manfredini featuring isolated music and special effects selections. Basically what this is, it's an interview with Mr. Manfredini composed by Michael Felsher, and it's kind of played out almost like a audio commentary in which it plays while you're watching the movie, and then it switches over to just an isolated score. But Mr. Felsher opens the interview discussing his search to find the original audio tapes for the score to Slaughter High, but they were unable to locate them. Felsher conducts the interview with Manfredini in which he discusses what inspired him to become a composer, the first projects he worked on professionally, Friday the 13th and its success, working in and out of the horror genre. He discusses getting involved with Slaughter High and how he approached scoring it and how the producers wanted it to be more Friday the 13th. Like he composed some music, he sent it to Dick Randall and Steve Manasian, and they said, no, scrap that, just basically do the Friday the 13th score again. That's why the music in Slaughter High sounds a lot like the Friday the 13th score. A pretty interesting interview there with Mr. Manfredini. We also have an audio commentary featuring co-writers and co-directors George Dugdale and Peter Litton, moderated by Michael Felsher. They discuss many of the difficulties they encountered while shooting the movie. The fact that the producers paid more money to Harry Manfredini to compose the score than the money that they gave them to make the movie. They paid more for the score than they paid for the movie. And then they basically said, okay, forget about that score that we just paid you more money for than what we're putting in the movie, and just basically give us the Friday the 13th score instead. Yeah. They discuss producer Dick Randall and his prerequisites that the film must contain, chiefly body count, if you catch my drift. They discuss casting the film, the makeup effects in the film, the locations. They also discuss how successful the film was on VHS. I listened to about 45 minutes of this commentary while watching the movie. Very, very entertaining, very, very fun commentary by Mr. Dugdale and Mr. Litton. Just very cheeky. Very, very cheeky commentary. I had a lot of fun listening to it for that 45 minutes, and I'll probably go back and watch the rest of the movie with that commentary because pretty entertaining. Though those are a couple of cheeky blokes. I'll leave it at that. This is a really nice Blu-ray release for Slaughter High from the Vestron series, collector's series. If you're a fan of Slaughter High, you definitely need to look into picking up this Blu-ray. This Blu-ray, of course, destroys the old DVD release that we had for the film. I know there's a lot of budget, at least a couple of different budget DVD releases out there that are even worse quality than the official, I guess, DVD release that we got a few years ago. Picture quality and the sound quality on here are fantastic. The audio commentary is hilarious. Got some nice interviews on here as well. this is a must. If you're a fan of Slaughter High, this is a must. If you're a fan of 80s slasher movies, I think Slaughter High is a must as well. Yeah, I'll put a link in the description. I think you can pick this up on Amazon for about $20. I do believe. I'll put a link in the description. Go over and check it out. Also want to let you guys know that all the shirts in my TeePublic store right now are marked down 30%, and I just added a whole bloody slew of brand new horror shirts to that store. I'll put the link in the description. Follow that link, go over and check them out. Lots of really cool shirts, $14. You can't beat it. If you like this video, please leave it a thumbs up. If you're not following me on social media, those links are in the description. They're also right around here. As always, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Take care, and until next time, peace. Join the $1 a month club and help support my channel on Patreon. Thank you to current patrons Terry Delamore and Orc145626. Say hello to the internet, Jeremy.
Hello to the internet.